It's time for change to move into the real work of the universe. And it's time to understand that we use the matter state to reach the level of understanding of the soul of the man. Now you understand maybe why the Creator has sent His messengers in the name of whatever you have had. Is that they bring the ears, that it can be used when the time of the Messiah comes. They can teach the soul and the message, not to oppose. But by them understanding through those who have become Messiahs, to give from their souls to these to elevate, the job is made easy. The school is there and the students are devotedly there. Then there won't be any fight between what they call the Muslims and the Christians. The lamb and the lion will eat and sleep in the same nest. The Christians and the Muslims will sleep and pray in the mosque and in the same church in the name of their souls, not in the name of religion that is used to create so much conflict for the benefit of those who were the hyperactive children. The time has come, the time of change is here. And as I said, my wish is my command. If it's your wish to see peace, the path of peace is laid very clearly. It's the soul of the collective awareness, by giving, will create that position of change. No other thing. There is no pen in the soul of the man. And I'm sure once you go into the universal community, you will never see anything written but the balance of the fields of the soul of the existence. Try to be humble enough not to become arrogant in the power that you have understood and you possess. Otherwise, you'll fall in the same path of the church and the mosque. This is what we promised, and this is what we have delivered. We have to understand the operation of the soul, and we have to understand the soul of the man is a star in the cosmos of the universe. If we compare the soul of the man and many of us, 7 billion in one collection, Earth is like a galaxy with so many stars. When we look in the depth of the universe, we see galaxies with hundreds of millions of stars in it. So is the planet Earth. It carries 7 billion beautiful stars, which are the soul of the man. Carries with it soul of so many trillions of animals, plants, and everything else. So if you look, when someone who does not see the physicality of the earth and its content, what do they see? They see a galaxy with so many beautiful lights shining, each one according to their strength, each one according to their position. An infant has a beautiful soul, so has the old man. To those who do not see the physical dimension of this planet, but they see the strength of the field, we are clusters of stars. The human race, every single soul, no one from a distance sees, that's the soul of a fisherman, that's the soul of the cosmologist, that's the soul of the president. They all shine irrespective of the physicality. This is the magic. This is what the new science has to bring to man. When we look through our soul, we see nothing but we star in the other souls. And this is the break. This is the understanding. This is what all these teachings are about. Coming to mature to the next level, to understand in the deep space, the universe is the oyster for those souls who serve. Then man is ready to go into space. Then man is ready to become part of the universal community which has been promised. I never promised you heaven. I always promised you the elevation of the man to join the family. And now you have the key. It's you who has to open the door to understand, if I can raise the soul of these people or millions of other souls, that the physical life on this planet changes, then I'm worthy to be part of the universal community. To be there to serve, to expand. To be there to be part, that in the cycle of life of universe, I become, in being part, I become part of the totality. When man reaches that point, a new dimension in the strength of the soul of the man will appear, which is beyond imagination of understanding of the physical life. It's the gate to the opening of the new life, in a new dimension, which is beyond imagination of what you might call a new beginning, a new cycle, which that cycle carries with itself the origin of the creation of life in the universe and the universe. It's the elevation of the soul to serve become the key, not a throne of the physical life. The time is right. The time has come for the man to go through this process.
Welcome everyone to the 52nd One Nation, One Planet, One Race for World Peace. It's Tuesday, October 9th, 2018. I'll be your host today, Rick Crammond, and this is a presentation of the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute, public teachings in English. And we have, as usual, Caroline Keshe with us here today to guide today's proceedings. And far as I know, she's ready to begin. I understand that last week we've worked with the 12th commandment, which was thou shalt be equal to others and do not consider thyself higher or lower than them. And this week we're going to work with the 13th commandment, which is the man feeds his loved ones as well as his enemies. So are you ready to begin today's proceedings, Caroline?
Yes, Rick, we are present. Thank you for being here, team, and to start this platform. I hope you have your coffee, your tea, a nice comfortable chair. And indeed, we are carrying on with the third commandment. If you can put it up onto the screen, please, that people can read it or contemplate on it. If you could be so kind.
Sure, yep. Make it a little larger. Okay, so this, let me get my other microphone open here just a second. There we go. This is the taken from the keshefoundation.org commandments website, which is keshefoundation.org/about/WPT/commandments. And if we scroll through, we have the 10 commandments that we all know about. And then we have the 14 commandments that have been added by Mr. Keshe. And we have the 11th one, thou shalt not lie. The 12th one, thou shalt be equal to others and do not consider that thyself higher or lower than them. And there we have the 13th, the man feeds his loved ones as well as his enemies.
Yes. The man feeds his loved ones as well as his enemies. What does that bring on the table as in the context of how it is written down? Who would like to start opening this one, please? Anybody in the public has any understanding how this one should be or can be understood? We're going to have a slow start today.
Just as a comment to get things warmed up, it seems very much tied into the previous commandment, thou shalt be equal to others. In a way, if you're feeding your loved ones as well as your enemies, then it appears that you'd be treating your enemies as equal to your loved ones in a way, that they are as equal to our loved ones in that they perhaps deserve our love as much as our loved ones do. It's a bit of a strange concept, let's say, but I think maybe when we look into it more deeply, we'll find that it might be have some hidden treasures in that idea.
Yep, that's exactly what I think as well. Because if we take the physicality today and we open it up, if we work in the physical world, I think majority will admit or will recognize that this isn't always taking place. And usually it sticks out when it happens that one or a few really stand out to embrace somebody who has done something wrong with love and kindness and forgiveness, and to treat, especially in war zones or conflict zones, like was shown in Israel conflict with Palestine, that it really doesn't matter who got hurt, that they will still support and help and give the aid they need. And it comes back in our history. I think it is in a very physical form. It's also when there is shortage, shall we put, with the ones we are in conflict, shall we put the same, not only kindness, but shall we also share what we sometimes might have more, and what is an enemy. And then if we look at our work, what we have achieved so far, I think the knowledge seekers have started understanding, especially through the wish we made for Togo. I think that that giving is also feeding. And Togo was one of the outstanding examples to definitely to give to the people which, when you create this kind of, you come into this kind of conflicts, that they become like an enemy portrayed, because they are the ones who come with the problems. But the Keshe Foundation, and as its knowledge seekers and all who is here present, will recognize how freely was given. And this is the same as we usually naturally give so easy to our loved ones, to people we care for. So I think we have started a change in that direction. That's why I was asking if more knowledge seekers could bring, it's slightly different, Rick, than no higher, no lower. It is more in a specific turn when you really don't like the person or you don't like the situation, to be there no matter what. Inequality, no higher, no lower, is in a slightly different way. I think the point here was because at that time you have to remember, these are commandments which were not released by Moses. And you had a lot of tribal wars, and we still see those today as Israel and Palestine. This is not only about land, this is not only about this or that. They really portray as loved ones and enemies. And I think it fits in a slightly different way of behaving. What do you think, Rick?
Okay, well, that's a way to begin. And I'm sure we'll need some practical examples and ideas to go along with that to flesh it out so we know more about what you're discussing. We have Dimitri who has his hand up here, and I'm sure he has something he'd like to say.
Hello, Rick, Caroline, everybody. Thank you. When you were just speaking then, Caroline, you really touched on what was going through my head when you said, "What are enemies?" For how I feel is that with the deeper you go into the understanding of this knowledge, enemies is a word that just dematerializes. It doesn't have any meaning because there are no enemies. Everybody is family. They've just positioned themselves as off of the light slightly. You know, I don't feel that we do have enemies.
I understand what your point is, but it's a name, it's a word. It carries an energy. So an enemy is a depleting energy in the form of the understanding how it's been taught what it is, an enemy. Loved one has a different field strength and a different meaning and is full of energy and caring. So for a lot of people, a lot of things are not really clear to where to put them and position them. But if you only already go with the meaning of how it's been taught and passed on generations, what is an enemy? It is an enemy is something that disagrees with you, no more, no less. But at the same time, there's so many other side information which have been attached to this, which are really depleting and I came across something funny last week. I circled it around, and there were two plants in the school. And one plant received nothing but, I love you, I care for you, I adore you, I appreciate you in our school. And I come and say every day hello to you, and I will express how much I love you. And then there was a plant a few meters away in a box, and it received nothing but hate and all the whatever opposite was to what I just mentioned before. They literally were killing the plant because they were depleting and insulting it so bad, it couldn't stand on itself anymore. When we bring this into a commandment, this is the effect of the understanding of the giving and behaving. What you do to one another when you put a name on it or a tag on it, and you never stand still in the reality, what do we do? What is the content of the message? Shouldn't we start opening up to our children the understanding, and even to our own self and to our family, or when you come into a conversation with somebody, and just put the topic out of nowhere, out of the blue? What does the word enemy means to you? And then you will start seeing what the education is behind it. You have to also remember that this was something that was supposed to be brought that time, so much before our time. And because in these conflict situations, the translation word is enemy, but these were tribal feuds. Now they have reshaped them and put them even in other shapes and forms, which becomes very blurry for people to really go to the essence of it. So it would be nice if other people have more ideas about your loved one and your enemy. And how fast can we balance it out easier? Anybody else?
I have something to ask you, Caroline, please. Would, definition of enemy is all, we all have our own feeling, weight, what is carried with that word. As a generic for everybody, this is in many ways an aggressive thought, but is an enemy someone that does not wish to elevate the planet with plasma, science, technology, knowledge, implementation? Is that an enemy?
No. No, why should it? Enemy, you have to define more what enemy really means. Where did it originate? Maybe they can look it up. What's the word of enemy really implying? Would that be possible, Rick?
Yes, sure. Let's see here what.
Because it makes it much easier if we open up what is the content of enemy. In different parts of the world and in different time zones, I mean centuries, it might mean something completely different than what we even assume today. But where sits the pivot point of being an enemy? Is somebody usually which goes completely opposite to what you're doing, but does that make an enemy? No. it becomes an enemy situation if they start destructing and destroying and insulting. You got it, Rick?
Yes, I've got the meaning from the Cambridge English Dictionary. It says an enemy is a person who hates or opposes another person and tries to harm them or stop them from doing something. Whoops, the ad came in here. Let's see. The second definition is a country or the armed forces of a country that is at war with another country. So those are actually the two main things. A person who hates or opposes another person and tries to harm that person, or an enemy can be a country or the armed forces or people of a country that is at war with your own country.
Harm comes in many different forms. That if you implement what that definition is, it covers a lot of entities on this planet.
If you're sharing a screen, Rick, we don't see it other than the commandments.
And that's all I had. I have to find.
What does Wikipedia says about this?
I just had a dictionary definition. I'm not sure if I'll try the wiki.
It's in the links, Rick, or the chat rather.
In the chat. Which chat?
It's a very sensitive thing because enemy is a word, yeah? But it is always what do we attach to that in the understanding what that word means. How have you been brought up for that word to mean that? And in what shape and form you're right. It can be carried out in different shapes and forms. But it's the opposite of what you love.
Okay, so we have a more complete definition from Wikipedia here. I'll just read it. An enemy or foe is an individual or a group that is verified as forcefully adverse or threatening. Concept of an enemy has been observed to be basic for both individuals and communities. The term enemy serves the social function of designating a particular entity as a threat, thereby invoking an intense emotional response to that entity. The state of being or having an enemy is enmity, foehood, or foeship. And then it gets into some of the terms and how it's used and the military uses and so on. Such as a government may seek to represent a person or group as a threat to the public good by designating that person or group to be a public enemy. The characterization of an individual and or group as an enemy is called demonization. The propagation of demonization is a major aspect of propaganda.
So what does that actually mean? That there are no enemies so far. If you truly want to sit down and not create conflict or hardship, to create a path to embrace them. I remember what I used to call the horse whisperer. He showed it into the way he was bringing children from the street. And it didn't matter from what background they came or what they had done wrong or where they were going wrong. When they came into his care, he said, the seed of love and the seed of beauty is always present. It only depends how you're going to bring it up to the surface. And as we all have learned as knowledge seekers, the seed is the soul. So the good is in every man. I think it is more into bring ourselves into the wisdom, no matter how opposing the other person is behaving, to try to embrace it and see where you can bring the beauty up. Anybody more thoughts about this?
Yes, Christian here. I would like to describe my relationship to enemy. At first, if somebody opposes me, to me, this is somebody who helps me. And I don't feel anything against a person opposing me. And if somebody tries to destroy me, this is a former feeling of being an enemy. So I have to be careful. I have to maybe protect myself. But still, if somebody becomes this kind of enemy, it means there is something wrong where I should look at myself. Because what makes this person act against me, what seems to be against, but maybe it's not against at all, it's rather a certain kind of helping me. This is why we often say the enemies, they tell you the truth about yourself, and be careful with your friends in a way. So actually it's a very interesting topic to me, and I try to be, when I start being angry about somebody trying to be an enemy, I feel, oh, there's something wrong with me. Where do I have to look at myself to find out why this situation appears and how can I solve it? And also, if you look at the word enemy, then you have the A in it. And this is vocal that closes, makes a border between you and the other side. You know, E doesn't do so, or O or A, but E does, enemy, which is interesting as well. Yes, you all may.
May I add a thought? In the animal world, sometimes one animal eats the other. It's very common. So there is a saying that some people say that, for instance, the bat is the natural enemy of the mosquitoes because it eats thousands of mosquitoes in a night. It's nothing about hate. It's nothing about anger. It's not personal. It's not emotional. It just wants to eat. But man seldom wants to eat the other. Yet some madmen try to hurt the others. I understand you say that you do a kind of introspection in case if you feel that you are targeted by an enemy. But let's say somebody just wants to rob your money. It's nothing personal in you. Just you walk in a street and somebody just puts a knife at your throat and wants to take your belongings. It's not about hate again. How you deal with that?
If you mean me, yes, of course. Their hate is something else. Enemy is a different. Enemy has more quality than hate. Hate is just a wrong kind of love.
The problem is, yeah, the problem is when some people are inciting one against the others and trying to make, to demonize the other, saying it's your enemy, and are creating conflicts. You see, two persons who have a little intelligence can hurt each other by accident. One steps on the other's toe by accident. But they can deal and understand each with other, and they can find their peace. If there is a long-term conflict between two parties, it can be two persons, two groups, neighbors, or two countries, always there is present a third party which is unknown and who is inciting that situation by talking about the other to the one of them and inciting, showing a picture depicting the other that it would do harm or whatever. So be careful of third parties. Have you ever been in a society being falsely accused by a clique of a few persons who are witnessing against you just to remove you? How you deal with that? And usually the person who started remains in secret.
Okay, I would like to add another kind of being enemy. I've discovered that I had been enemy to myself in several cases. So creating a conflict between what I think, what is in my imagination, and my soul. And if I work on this part of becoming an enemy to yourself, this is very effective, and it really shows you what to think about enemies outside as well.
Don't we also have the structure within the family because of the way the parents or the great parents have been brought up in their religion structure and their cultural structure? Don't you see also this coming up with the younger generation, the conflict situations which are arising? I don't think we have to look very far to find who's the enemy and the foe, as Rick read it. It's when you stand out, when you're completely different. And it's when it starts getting opposed. It happens in the smallest situations, even on the school ground. I think we should open more the awareness that what enemy really means and start asking people's perception about the content of the word, and maybe ask them how they would position it in a different way. Isn't that how we are supposed to start working with these interpretations of these commandments in the understanding? If we don't open them up, we won't change the view and how we perceive them. Isn't it more important to, as knowledge seekers, for each commandment to start asking in in your environment, even having communications about it in your classrooms or in your workshops, to start taking part of the understanding, but by opening it up. Isn't that how we're going to change the whole field strength about even just one word, enemy? That we can then open the doors for the integration. Not so much only understand, but actually start carrying it out by opening it up and creating the awareness, which, as Mr. Keshe explained before, it could have not been done that time, because if you don't live by, let's say, that concept yourself, you cannot stand for it. I think as knowledge seekers, if we start implementing them by talking, putting them on the table, we are now in number 3, without going in really too deep. But if we take the points that Mr. Keshe brought in these commandments and start applying them by opening them up, then we're going to change the whole field strength of the vision about it. What do you think about that? Wouldn't that be the more fastest way to work with it? Anybody, any ideas?
I'm noticing here that when we look at the term enemy, as shown in the top of this paragraph here, the term enemy is derived from the Latin for the Latin inimicus, which means bad friend. So it's the Latin actually uses the word friend in the definition for enemy. So it's like we have good friends and bad friends, but they're all friends originally in the Latin, but we don't think of enemies as our friends nowadays. Even as a bad friend, really, it's the enemy. And I think that's interesting. It goes on to say that it's a strong word, and emotions associated with the enemy would include anger, hatred, frustration, envy, jealousy, fear, distrust, and possibly a grudging respect. Or possibly grudging respect.
Other languages use other terms for enemy. So they can say opponent, who is opposing you, or counterparty, who is against what you try to do, tries to do to make impossible what you try to achieve, and try to make something else.
What you just said, then, Sandor, just quickly, bad friend. Does it not feel better to use that definition because of the weight that is connected to enemy? But bad friend to me does not carry that weight. And there's
I don't understand that Latin interpretation. I learned a little Latin, but for the prefix in, I never found the meaning of bad. It's rather something which says lack of something. So it's a not friend, in my interpretation. It's a friendship less. It's somebody without friendship to you.
An enemy.
The Latin inamicus. I'm talking about the Latin original word.
Okay.
So Rick has read a definition which says it's a bad enemy, but in as a prefix never had the meaning of bad, which is malus in Latin. It's rather unfriendly thing.
Right. There's another definition that mentions the in just means not, so it's not friend rather than bad friend, let's say.
Exactly. Exactly. I don't know if it's true, but people say that Vladimir Ilyich Lenin said that who is not our friend is our enemy. It was one of the slogans of the communists. Maybe this tells something about how to create virtual enemies from neutral people. That all by ideology.
And we can see by this link, make it a bit bigger, the descendants or derivations of that initial inimicus Latin became these various languages are all have that word that developed from that.
Rick, can I have 1 second of your time, please?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be on changing network, so I might be in and out for the next 20 minutes. So don't panic if I don't respond, just carry on.
All right.
Thank you. Till I'm stable, I will let you know.
Okay.
I think we might have a surprise coming in today, so hold your fingers crossed.
Okay, I noticed there's some feedback with your microphone, so maybe you could keep it muted if you're not speaking there.
Yeah, it's gonna go mute now, and I'll follow if needed. I will tell them.
Okay, very good.
But you might lose me, so don't panic. That's what I wanted to let you know. Thank you.
Great. Okay, we have Chao with his hand up here, and perhaps you can go ahead and speak there.
Hello, everyone. We are talking about we are looking for the definition of enemy, and I guess that we can define the word enemy with the plasma word. Like we can see that everyone has a willing to give and also at the same time to receive what they want, and the enemy is the entity. Nevertheless, he is a friend or family member or one country or one organization. When he wants to go against your willing to do something, and he will be viewed as an enemy. And there are two ways. One way is to force you to do something that you are not willing to do, and another thing is to stop you doing something you are very love to do. So so that we can see that you have the gravitational field and you want to get something, and when the entity stops you from getting something you want, you will have some negative feeling for that entity. And in another direction, you are very everyone has willing to give and to feed others and support others. But when someone forces you to stop doing this, and you have lots of money, but someone don't allow you to share with your wealth with others, and it go against your willing, and it will also be viewed as one enemy. And in my view, the one man has the lover and the enemy only in the physical level, because we have something we want to do, and we have some benefits. We have some ego, or and when someone violates and go against the willing, it can be viewed as enemy. But in the soul level, we are united and we are like family member. So there is no enemy in the soul level. And when we come back to the command, we can see that the command is teaching us to to recognize everybody in the soul level, not only in the physicality. So that's why we can treat the lover like we can treat the enemy like treating the lover, because we recognize the purity and the beautifulness and everything very good in the soul of the person, not in the physicality. And we will forget that he is enemy or his lover. So we just treat it as a pure soul. I also like to share one story in the Chinese culture. In a time long ago, there was one king go hunting in his garden, and he found someone he never knew, and that people is very strange. He can walk in the fire, and he can go past the stone. So the king was very curious that I never saw one man could do that. Like, how can one man walk in the fire and not get burned? And how can one man go past the stone? It's like a magic. And someone told the king that because this person has no idea of what is fire, what is stone. So he has no idea what it is, and because he does not recognize it, these things does not exist for him. That's why he can not be hurt by the fire or be stopped by the stone, because these are not exist to him in his consciousness. And if we apply what we learned in the story in our life, we can see if we does not recognize there is enemy, so there would be no enemy in our life, and we can treat everyone equally and just treat everyone like he is our lover. And so in this case, we will do what was told in the third command, treat the enemy like the lover. That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Is there anybody else that would like to go ahead with their ideas on this? Okay, I've got Theodore that I'll promote here so you can speak. Would you like to go ahead, Theodore? You're cleared there now.
Hi, Rick. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Rick, it's Ted calling in. Nice to talk to you again, brother.
Yes, you too.
I wanted to say about the enemies thing, that really resonates a lot with me, because I feel like in my heart that we're all somehow connected from the same source, in a way that if I was to hurt someone, it would really be hurting myself in like a different time and space that I can't really understand right now quite so well, but I know that that's what I feel is a fact. And that's really helped me to understand, like, or understand that Like there really isn't many enemies, and even or any enemies. And like sometimes when people are like pointed out as being really evil in the world, I kind of view them as like a teacher. Like they're here for the reason of helping us learn to get on to do what we're doing. And so I've been able to relinquish feeling like they're my enemy or working against me, and they're really helping me in kind of a weird way, if that makes sense. Even the people in my daily life that challenge me, they're trying to make me better, even if they don't know it. And so I love you all very much and wanted to share that. And I really liked what you said about the last.
Sorry, Ted, you broke up there. Like what you said about. Didn't catch the last part of your statement there. I think you broke up.
I have pretty low connection, Rick, so I don't know where I dropped off at, but
just the last sentence you said there.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm just wanting to conclude with saying that, like, I wish you and everyone listening and everybody on Earth peace and love and unconditional love, and you utilizing the idea of an enemy as being a teacher and looking at it as a friend, somebody there that's helping you and you don't realize it, and then you can give that unconditional love and be patient. That's how I do it. So thank you. Love the peace day. I love you all.
Okay, thank you, Ted. I think it kind of ties in with the idea that we've heard before of having a worthy opponent. What does that mean? Instead of calling someone that we might have strong emotions toward, instead of calling them an enemy, calling them a worthy opponent. And that makes it, I think, more like a game rather than a serious situation.
Chao has described it very nicely, that of opponent who is opposing what you want to do, or you want to have, or you want to be. For instance, you want to be alive and enjoy life. And that which you call your opponent or your enemy just wants to stop you doing that, wants to have you dead. And I think that's an extreme case, but this also happens very frequently. May I share a story of my nation's history about how to feed your enemy? I think it fits here. It happened in 1051 after Christ that the German Roman Emperor Henry III decided to attack again Hungary. In that time, the king of Hungary was a new king. It was Andrew I. So Henry came with a big army just to devastate everything and to change everything there. And Andrew followed the strategy of emptying the land in the front of the attackers. So he emptied all the villages, all the settlements. They burned all the food which was there, and they cut the supplies. So the huge armored army, all armored with heavy armor, remained in a place without any supply. One of the tricks was when somebody came with supply, they told him fastly that no, your country the country was attacked. You have everybody goes home. No need for supplies. So they used a little trick, but in essence they isolated the attacker from any supplies, and the attackers, the armored army, found a retreat on a hill. The Hungarians didn't do much to them, just they harassed them mainly in the nighttime, just a little bit. They never confronted them. And after several weeks passed, and the enemy was already very hungry, Suddenly, the king, Andrew, sent them many carts full of food, more food that they could bear, that the army, the opponent army could bear in their hands. Fishes, such a big fishes, which sturgeons, which were in Danube in that time. Also bacons, hundreds of kilograms of bacon, pork, also kettles, and also a lot of bread. So when the enemy's army have seen that, they try to pick up as much as possible, and they all thrown their armors on that hill, and they left home, packed with food. And that was the end of that war. The place is still called Vértes, which means armored. Vért is armor in Hungarian. Now, if you dig there because you want to plant some grapevine or something, often you find pieces of the old armor which have been left there by that army. So this is one of the examples of how to feed your enemy. Of course, you defend yourself, you don't let to be killed, and when you have the opportunity, you give a big present and you feed your enemy, and they change their mind. I hope somebody understood about this story, something. So that was it.
Well, that's a beautiful story. Thank you, Shandor.
You're all welcome.
I've got Abraham here with his hand up. I'll promote you. And you should be able to speak in just a couple of seconds here. Abraham, would you like to open your microphone and go ahead?
Me, Rick?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm Aviram, living in Quebec. I was thinking about this sentence, and I am very happy. I thought in the beginning, oh, that's one of the most difficult commandments. But then what I heard up to now from all our knowledge seeker friends, everybody has really deep insights, and that blesses me out. If I want to share what I was thinking about it, is maybe in order to be able to feed our enemies, we need to be more selfish, in the sense that if we perceive somebody as an enemy, and we, according to all that you people said, we agree upon the fact that an enemy is not an enemy from his side, he becomes only an enemy if we make him an enemy. So that's our judgment only. But if we look at somebody as an enemy, we perceive him as hurting us. So we become angry and we get all these negative emotions, but it's for his fault. So actually, he is dominating or overpowering, dominating our life. If, on the other hand, we do not see the same person as an enemy, we see him as neutral or even as a friend, then we are not hurt. So everything is related to our perception, and everything is related to what we want. Do we want to fight? Do we want to get hurt? Do we want to be angry? All for somebody else's fault, in parentheses? Or do we want to live a happy life? Do we want to grow? Do we want to expand ourselves beyond any limits? Do we want to be one with everybody? If we want this and all good feelings, then the concept of enemy is not really very good for us. It's not really working well for us. So it would be a good way to remember that we are just souls. And as a soul, we are receiving and giving all the time without any condition. As a soul, we cannot really see an enemy. The concept of enemy is very foreign to us. We don't know what it means on the soul level. We only have friends and lovers. So if we know that from this level, we are always giving and receiving, we are part and parcel of the cosmic flow, we are nourished, we live in trust of the whole universe, then we do not really have to consider to feed an enemy or a friend. We do it anyway, naturally. It so happens because we are living out our true nature. That means we give unconditionally, we receive unconditionally, and we do not judge to whom we give. We are like a sun, you know. The sun doesn't really look on, do I really want to shine on Donald Trump? No, it shines on Donald Trump because Donald Trump is the same as Aviram or Rick or Mr. Cash. So if we live this, then everything becomes very clear and actually not a question. It's not really a commandment. It's like if we reach the level of living from our soul, we will not see enemies and we will feed anybody equally. That's what I want to
Beautifully said. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, especially. Sorry, go ahead.
Think about how many years it was a cruel war with terror attacks between Russia and Chechnya Republic. Maybe you remember in the 90s, you read in the news that Chechens blew up a building in Moscow. Later, you've heard that somebody blew up a building in Grozny. It was obvious that probably a third party tried to incite war between these two parties. And they had a long history of wars. Then war started, and it took so much time. And at the end, the president was killed in a horrible way, the Chechnyan president. It was in a stadium, and they blew up the benches underneath. And later, his son came to the power. Now, look up history, recent history, how President Putin made peace with the new young president of the Chechnya Republic, and how he made him an ally. That now the Chechnyan president says if somebody would try to harm President Putin, he would defend him even with the price of his own life. He loves him so much. So how enemies turn to be friends. So if you look for details, you will find out that instead of financing a never-ending war, Russian leadership decided to help economically, financially, and with all other aids, the Chechnya Republic. So they could reconstruct the country. They made a beautiful capital with hospitals, schools, nice streets, nice buildings, and so on. And its all investment was a fraction of the cost, how much would have been to keep up the war. Think about that. Or think about the recent sanctions against China, and President Xi just answered by offering $50 billion purchase of agricultural goods from America if they lift the sanctions. It's a peaceful way. Think about this. That was Marseille.
Can I answer something?
Go ahead, yes.
I know that, and there is a little mental exercise we can do. If we look, for example, at this image, and we know these are former enemies, and then we look at an image, or we imagine somebody who is really perceived from us being an enemy. Then we see him and we see anger coming up and resentment and all that. And then we just observe these feelings. And then we go to a place where we imagine the same person is lying on a bed in a hospital, and he has terminal cancer, and he has no access to plasma tools. So he will die of cancer in the next 2 days. And we sit at his side, and we look in the eyes of that person. And then we really let the feeling come. This person opposite of me is about to die. He cannot do anything about it. Nobody killed him. He just has a disease of which he is going to die now. And I'm the only one in his presence right now. I think all of us, where the feeling which would come up would be compassion, and a feeling to be very, very close to that person. And again, we would not see an enemy. We would not even see a friend. We would see actually us being there, looking at us. So that means that this person who was a former enemy became me. And that is a little exercise Buddhists do when they have this enemy conflicts. They think about what is the circle of me. If the circle of me is very greedy and narrow, then almost everybody, even my lover sometimes, is outside of that circle. I'm actually all alone in that circle because I want. But if I make the borderline of this circle a little wider, so my neighbors can come in, my lover, my children, my parents, my family can come in, then I'm already much, much bigger. And then in this, inside the circle of me, there is no question for me to give and to be compassionate and to love. It's happening naturally. And then I can do it consciously, expanding the circle of me beyond the people I know. So a stranger walking in my circle can be perceived by me suddenly no more as a stranger, but me. So if I see, oh, he needs something, then I'm going there, can I help you? So I'm very happy to do that. And so if this circle expands to include all the animals and the human beings and the people past, present, and future, then everything is me. And then I have no problem because there are no enemies anymore. Voila. Thank you.
Very nice, Abraham. Thank you.
Hi, Rick.
Hi, Caroline.
For a short period of time, I will be stable. You remember that from the first commandments, I directed what does it mean towards you within you? What is if the enemy is not outside? How would you start perceiving that as an opening up.
You got the hint?
Of course I got the hint. I started the teaching, the presentation of the commandments. It only matters in the positioning of yourself. Each commandment has nothing to do with the outside, but only with you within yourself.
The biggest enemy, sorry, it's just me, Caroline isn't me. The biggest enemy of the man, the physicality, is actually the soul, which speaks about the enemy, which is the physicality of the man, and nothing else. So it's when it says, "Thou shalt love his enemy," it means without the existence of the physicality, the soul cannot exist, because through this physicality, soul gets nourished. But at the same time, because of the physicality, soul suffers, because it goes against everything which he, as a soul, has ever created. And the physicality does everything opposite. So if for soul to wants to exist, it has to love the physicality, that through it, it confirms its own existence. So when it says, "Thou shalt love his enemy," the enemy of the soul is the physicality of it, which created by himself. So when you listen or hear about these commandments, is about the soul of the man and the physicality of the man. So if a soul can love the physicality which lets it suffer so much, so you can love anybody else, forget about just the physicality. And then you cannot have any enemies. Because if you can tolerate and understand the suffering of the soul, but in the hand of the physicality, physical body, which he created himself, then you understand the worst enemies better than what the physicality does to the soul itself. Then you have no enemies, because as our friend just said, you increase the circle beyond the physicality, so everybody is friend. The physicality puts a lot of pressure, a lot of steals continuously from the soul to confirm its own existence. That's why we call the soul of the cells of the body of the man. Then you will see, so man has no enemies, because it cannot be worse an enemy than the soul has created himself by himself, which is the physicality, to confirm his own existence.
Anybody, any thoughts?
Yes. Can I?
Please go ahead.
Thank you. It's Aviram again. I maybe even if we say or we think that the soul considers the physicality as an enemy, that is maybe only a perceived enemy, because the soul, I think or I feel, is unconditional love. And for me, if the soul would see my body, my soul would see my body as an enemy, that would be like I see my leg as an enemy, because maybe I have one leg shorter than the other and it doesn't really help me running fast. But it doesn't help me. It's getting worse if I would consider my leg my enemy. So I could probably much more heal my leg if I would consider the leg what it is. It's just a part of me, and it helps me walking through life in this space-time world I'm right in right now. And then body is something which is loved as anything else, because it's the means for my soul to grow, isn't it?
Say again, please.
I think if
when you speak about enemy, is not somebody who goes and robs or whatever.
is what it does against your will, what it does against your wish. It's not that it goes to harm. Its action is against what you set out to do or what you gave something to be done. Enemy, in the language of enemy, we don't talk about enemy, someone who goes and fights you or whatever. It does against what it is. If you look, soul does not steal, but man does. But soul created the man for it to do good things or to confirm, to collect that it can exist. And when we speak about enemy, is not somebody who battles or steals. It's the action of, is opposite to what was given to be done. We do that with our lovers. When we love someone, what do? We give. But what happens if the lover betrays? Doesn't steal anything. It just takes from what is given to be given back. We give love to confirm that we exist by getting love back. And this is the whole process, all the commandments, as I said when we released the other 12, is all to do with a man in respect to itself, nothing else. When you speak about these commandments, look at what it means. And then you understand very much, you get two actions, two directions. Life becomes unbearable or life becomes very sweet because the conformity comes between the two, one or the other. And when we speak about stealing, we only can steal from ourselves. Stealing an apple is not the stealing of something from somebody else, because then it's the action which the physicality does for its confirmation of existence. And a lot of us, we don't listen to any of what is being said, except that if we can be correct in conduct of what we do with our physicality and respect our soul, we'll do the same thing with everybody else the same. So we don't have any enemies outside. We create the enemies because our physicality goes against the work of our own soul. If somebody hits you and you kiss them, they become ashamed. Are they enemies? Or by doing of what is the wish of the soul, you change the enemy to a friend. But sometimes you cannot do, because there is a reason for it. It's a test for the soul. Anything which we do to see, to observe, is what is the response of the physicality in response to the soul. There is something which a lot of us don't grasp or maybe need to understand. What happens when you love your child and it does something or does not get good degrees or marks in the exam? You tell him off, or you encourage him, or you beat him, or you invest more in another teacher to teach him that he becomes better. The soul, when the body goes, physicality goes against the wish of the soul, is a test for the soul. That can it give more, that it can pass that physicality through that challenge of failing the soul. It's that extra teacher the father brings, extra money he spends. So the soul needs to give more to change. In all our teachings, in all our health application, what do? We talk about strengthening the soul, that through the soul we can heal the physicality. So the enemy of the soul of the man, which is this physicality, is a test for the soul. How can it give more, that it can receive more to elevate itself? And this is what none of us understand. The theology of behavior of the soul is test mark, is benchmark, is the behavior of its physicality. And for it to see how much it can give to allow that weakness, that failure in physicality to overcome, to pass, to surrender to what the soul wants. Very recently, we've seen, as Sandor was talking about, Russia and Chechnya and the rest of it. When you sit with world leaders, many of them don't want war. Many of them don't see enemies. They see collaboration, they see joint working, but they have to create an enemy for them to have a reason to confirm they exist. And secondly, they get their factories or whatever running. Have a look. How many African nations produce war materials? Hardly any except South Africa. Have a look at Central Asia. Look at up to the recent past few months, Australia. They're always voting, they never produce. Now they want to, like Japan does, because now it's become a good business to create enemies, to sell weapons. But in reality, does the man need to? Does the man have to have enemies to test itself? Does any of our souls need to be tested if we are correct with our own conducts of the soul? Why doesn't soul continuously give more to elevate the physicality, that no physical body does anything wrong? Where has things gone wrong? That we still, by eating the soul and the physicality of another animal, be it vegetable, be it horizontal, vertical, we call it, or stealing or killing. The soul knows it's wrong. So it means the soul has a weakness. Soul of the man has a weakness in transmitting its strength that elevates the physicality. And physicality tests the soul, give me more that I don't need to do. And that allows, by giving more, to receive more, to elevate the soul. And this is one thing we don't understand. We try to hide and duck under different names, punishment or whatever. But sometimes when people go across the line and do the wrong, they see, oh, there was something they didn't want us to know, because it was so good that they could have it, but we couldn't. And then it comes a cycle of punishment, cycle of the doing wrongs. You talk about the monks and that kind of thing. You heard about the story of the monk that he says to his flock, do not go down the hill, stay in the temple, because he wanted to control them. He says there are tigers on the bottom of the hill, in the bush, in the jungles. They eat you up. One of the guys, what they call, his followers, decides to go out into the jungle and see if he can tackle these tigers, then he can take the place of the master. But after a while, he comes back running and laughing and very happy. And they say, what happened? He said, I met the tiger. She's so beautiful that I wish the whole jungle was full of tigers. I can handle all of them. It's a beautiful woman. So The priest doesn't want the man to understand the pleasure of life. So what do? We go to test. We go against the wish and the will of our physicality. But if our strength is enough, if our soul has been allowed to give, we don't need to test. We don't need to go and find if it's beautiful or if it's dangerous, because the beauty will come from within. And this is what we say, thou shalt not, whatever about his enemy, because the enemy of the man, the physicality, is there to be a challenge to the soul of the man, for the soul to elevate itself, that it can change the physicality, not to do wrong or to be enemy against anybody or itself. Is in fact, when you say thou shalt love his enemy, it means the soul to give enough that the physicality doesn't need anything, because the enemy is there to take away from you or condition you or fight, where the physicality challenges the soul to give, that I don't need to do wrong, to be opposite to. The biggest enemy of the soul is the physicality, because it entraps it till the time when the physicality has no more strength to control it and it frees itself. But in that process, in that time, the physicality, the soul of the man continuously takes from physicality. It's the process of feeding. Why do we eat? The soul allows the physicality to do wrong for it to be fed. When we eat a flesh of animal, when we eat a vegetation, whatever, in them, there is a strength that is the strength of the soul of the man, which gets fed to the soul of the man. We absorb from it. We look as we are feeding the physicality, but when we consume anything, we don't consume it if in it wasn't a strength that it was part of the strength of the soul that it needed to for it to exist. We look at the whole cycle of life upside down. Soul needs to receive and makes the physicality to do for it to be able for soul to survive. And then it becomes his enemy because it doesn't give enough to it that it doesn't need to kill. It can, because the soul in reality should be able to feed itself without handling. The physicality has to be the beauty of the soul. But what does it do? Then it goes against it and it creates its own enemy. So if the soul loves the physicality cannot become enemy. That for it, thou shalt love his enemy. It has to give more to elevate the soul, that the physicality, that this, by giving more, the physicality never do any wrong, to become not only to enemy to the soul itself, but to its own environment and other things. This is the next step of what we call in the Thursday teachings, elevation of the soul of the man. All the target we are talking about, the spaceship and everything, at the end, in a very near future, you will see it come to the spaceship of the man, which is the soul of the man. How to elevate it, that it creates a perfect physicality without taking from it. We got a few more weeks to go, but we get there very soon, and then you understand it's all what I call a path to the green garden. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Keshe.
Shall we open it up further in understanding, please?
Okay, is there anyone who'd like to come forward with additional information? Just remind the attendees you can put your hand up and I can promote you to a panelist and then you can speak. Now, something that has come up in the chat here, and Waldemir has made a number of statements and talking about the ego being that bad friend or enemy, as opposed to the soul, or it's actually against the soul or counter to the soul. And he also made a statement, I think it came from Freud originally, regarding women being that the lack of women for all started wars. So I'm not, I wasn't clear when I saw that comment where that was going, but in a way, if we look at that idea, instead of women, perhaps we could say the soul. Maybe it's a lack of soul that starts wars. The woman, the idea of woman maybe representing the soul, and the man being the physicality of the physical, the soul of the physicality, you might say. So perhaps that's one way to look at it. In a way, if the wars are started through the physicality, or what we could call ego, then maybe it's a lack of strength of the soul that actually creates wars. And that if we had that love for our enemies, or if we at least didn't fall into the propaganda of calling them enemies and thinking of them as enemies, then there would be no need for war. We wouldn't have that emotion to put our lives at risk in order to protect something which has all been contrived through propaganda to make us believe that there are some others that are opposed to us and they may hurt us, like the tiger at the bottom of the hill. Does anyone else have some input for us here?
How can we maybe ask the question, how can we position our soul to release more to the physicality, that the physicality doesn't need to go creating harm? Anyone, any thoughts about that?
Hello, everyone. Hello, Carolina. This is Charles. So I think like the physicality is like a child, and when the child is crying and it just wants to get attention of the parents and to feel that he is being loved, and it's the same for the physicality. And sometimes the physicality is the enemy to our soul because he does not like get attention, like does not get enough attention from the soul. That's why, like in many like religion, we do meditation, and one of the key, in my view, of the meditation is to pay attention to the physical body. There are different ways. For example, someone is like to counting the number of your breaths, and someone is to how to say, to practice your body and do something very restrictedly. And so through these different ways that the soul is paying attention to the physical body, and so when the attention, like the attention is the force or the energy, and when the attention of the soul reaches the physicality will be elevated, and when the energy is restored and get into a high level, the physicality will be like fully satisfied, and so in that case, we can say the physicality is united by the soul, and it's kind of a spaceship, and that's my understanding.
But where do we lose or use excessive amount of energy? Where does that take place?
What do you mean by saying use excessive energy?
Yeah, what comes to your mind where you use excessive amounts of energy, and where can you ease or reduce that excessive energy that the physicality can receive more?
To others?
No, yourself. Only yourself. We stay within your own circle. My question was, where do you yourself, are using excessive amount of energy, and where can you reduce it so that the body can receive more?
I'm not fully understand your question, and the first thing coming to my mind is to through wish and attention, the excessive energy from the soul, which is very abundant, will be reduced to the level of physicality through our attention and some wish.
No. Where do you literally burn a lot of energy?
There are different ways. The physical body consumes a lot in our daily life. We need to eat to feed the physicality, and another thing is our thoughts. The thoughts consumes lots of energy, and and especially when we are in some in the depression, frustration, and some negative.
Okay. I'll stop you there, because you bring a lot of different ones. So what happens where you burn a lot and you waste a lot? In the mind. It's your mindset. Your thoughts are the ones which are the creator, and your thoughts are the ones which are the consumers.
You mean the mindset?
Your thinking, your thoughts, They are
Yeah.
the ones which are using the huge amount of energy.
Yeah, I would agree that.
So that's the first, that was my original question. That's your highest consumption point.
Yeah, yes, I would agree with that. And so I can see like many people who who are getting close to their soul, and they show a very peaceful appearance, and they don't have so many thoughts, but he has very clear mind, but not like many thoughts. And yeah, because thoughts consumes energy, and so when people reach a peaceful level, a peaceful mind, and when all the thoughts are are gone, or like only a few left, and they can restore the energy in their body.
So where is the fighting already showing its first sign, where the consumption and where the enemy sits? Your thoughts are the point of creation, yeah? So what you fabricate or what you create in your mind, that's your highest point of consumption, isn't it? So that's your decision point, where and how much you decide to give. And also, as you said, pay attention to. So isn't it there where you really, really are on the source of consuming?
Yeah. Yeah, the source are consuming energy.
Which is, as we all have understood, that's the seat of your soul.
The seat.
Yeah,
the seat,
you know, like the seat of your soul, it means that's where the position is of your soul. And if your soul, as we all understood, is the creator, now, doesn't it become much more understandable with the 3 previous commandments, where you are going into overconsumption and that there is nothing left for the body to behave? Isn't that also then showing the part of the responsibility of your thoughts and your constructing, when you are taking charge of what you create, when you create, and how you create? If it is into the line of the soul to go positive, then you will deplete your physicality less from its strength. Isn't that going in the right direction of thoughts?
Yeah, that's a very good point here. Like if we have like positive thoughts, or like we have so the energy will be saved, and the energy from the soul can be used to feed the physicality, and in return, the physicality will not will be elevated and will not be the enemy to the soul. And so the key is to is on the source.
I remember, and maybe that can be part of what Rick likes to collect, is there is a say, keep your own fireplace, your own chimney clean. What do you burn in a chimney or in a fireplace? You burn wood, you burn stuff. So if we put our mind and in that sort of thought position, if we don't burn excessive, we will reduce the energy consumption, don't we? So these expressions or everywhere. Keep your own fireplace clean, or keep your chimney clean, your own chimney clean. What is the residue after you burn something? Ashes and dirt. So maybe knowledge seekers can go and start collecting to this point of referral. There might be a lot of sayings or expressions in the world which will bring you to that point. People have already been thinking and working with it. But that's why I said, where is the excessive burner of or user of? It doesn't happen outside you. And when you become consciously aware of for what purpose you create thoughts, then you also will be in possession of how much fuel or energy or whatever word you want to use that it makes it more easy to understand. Then there will be more for the physicality, there will be more at ease. Because we all know, if you now put instead of enemy the word enemy, if you put disturbance, nervous, anxiety, you have a whole range of different words which now create the same condition as enemy. Now you also see that these make you sick because they show.
Sorry,
Hello?
Hello. You just said we lost you. Like in the last sentence, you just said some feelings, negative feelings, and
yeah. If we now maybe go closer instead of enemy, which is so far away, what if we start understanding and take it a step closer, being nervous? Your heads are spinning around of thoughts. You're not calm. You search for revenge. You create anger. You create uncomfortable thoughts, negative thoughts, black thoughts. We are all more familiar with those words than actually enemy. But if we use those terms, then what do they do with you in your physicality? Then that makes you to behave like an enemy. Isn't it because we have already consuming them before, then actually you're depriving the physicality from, by burning it in the thought world, in your vision world, that there is nothing left because you feel exhausted if you had, let's say, trying to fight a war within your head about what is good and what is bad or whatever you're creating. That conflict, it starts in the thoughts, not the enemy outside. Doesn't that give a good perception of maybe easier way of understanding where the war is really going on and how the war is getting played, and then why you become a more enemy towards yourself than actually towards somebody else? Does that make more sense? Or in a different way?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense to me, and gives a lot of inspiration. Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much.
Anybody else? Anybody else making it easier to open up the understanding where you become an enemy of your own friend? You can hear me, Rick?
Yes, indeed. I'm just looking. Okay, we have Jalal with his hand up here, and I'll promote you there, Jalal, and we'll hear your point of view. Go ahead, Jalal.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Caroline.
Hi.
Do you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I have a different approach for this meaning. The man here is the soul. His loved ones and his enemies, that mean both the emotion and the physicality. It feeds both of them. Because once the physicality approach the soul and once the emotion approach the soul. And we know from one point that the emotions used the physicality for its purpose. And in that way, it becomes an enemy because it takes more than it gives. And in another way, the emotion, when it attracts to the soul, it will be the loved one. So here I think the meaning is very beautiful, because the same thing when we say it's equal, the same thing when Mr. Cash always said there is two way in one line, gravitational and magnetical. You cannot separate it ever. This one increase, this one loss, and this one increase, and the other was loss. So both of them, two faces to one coin, all the time. And if you brought it to the normal man understanding, why he have enemy and why he have loved one? In psychology science, the newborn child, he do not know anything about fear. He know only two things about fear: that he fall down or the loud noise. Only two things he born with. And the other fears, he actually learn it and take it from the environment. So it's all about energies. Everything the others fears, what the man created and absorbed, is only sorts of energies. And that's why Mr. Kai said, with this technology, there will be no fear. There will be no need, because you shortage of energy and you try to keep this energy to survive, because you do not know anything about the soul energy. So that's why you create enemies, because this, or he kept you from your source of energy, or he want to take your source of energy. Food is source of energy, water is source of energy, life is source of energy. So it's like this, only source of energy. And this compared to fear, because all of us, not now, before, and all humanity, they are survivors. They're afraid to be in need. and when he is in need, he will die. Even the thought, if he shortage of food or shortage of air or shortage of water, he will die actually before he is really needed shortage of that, because it is a thought. I hope I can somehow explain it in an easy way. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jalal. And we have Gunther here, and let's allow Gunther to have a say. Should be able to open your microphone there now, Gunther.
Yes, hello everyone. I can explain you a situation I had here where I made some tests with iodine GANS water. It was a week where I felt so beautiful, where my soul said to me, you don't need anything. You need no car, you need no house, nothing. It was a feeling of pleasure. It was a feeling of I have my soul has everything it needs. So this gives me the side when you make an energy input to your soul, you lose that feeling of enemy, of bad thinking, of too much thinking about things. They are not so as you mean. And when I see our position, Mother Earth, to the source, so we are so far away from the high energy density. And that's the problem. The souls need an energy around them where they can fill them up. And when we are alone and not in the groups and not on the other positive souls, we are down. We have a low energy in the soul, and there also a low energy in the physicality. And the people need only energy. That's the point. And when Mr. Keshe says, wait up when the fields are coming, you don't have fear. You don't think about things because you have everything. You're filled up with fields in your soul. And believe me, it was one of the beautiful weeks I had in my life. Wonderful. Thanks.
Can I add something, please?
Go ahead, absolutely.
Look to the writings. Though and the man. Though it's referring to you. The man, I think, is referring to the source. And that's why I said the man is the soul, and the soul is the same source. If you become a source, it's like you are in your, if you have a family, you are the source of this family. Here, the loved ones, all of them loved ones. Enemies in this way to the source, it's in your understanding to teach you how to treat. But for the source, all of them is one kind, equal. So he feed both of them. But because we are not yet a source, This is a path that we learn how to take it and use it to be in this source place, because we are learning. And in the end, you will become the man, not though. I think he put it in a beautiful way. Thank you. Caroline, no comment, because she have another feedings.
This is Marshak. So let's look at this soul and the physicality from the perspective of plasma field. Now, the source is a high-strength plasma field. Physicality is a much lower plasma strength field. Now, in between, we have this emotional world of emotion, which is the transition field, which is the bridge between the two. Now, one of the practices which has been common among many cultures is meditation, where we make an attempt to bring balance in this world of emotion. But with the knowledge of the plasma science, perhaps this transition field where the two worlds meet, you have the emotions of the physical side, and then there's the emotion of the soul side. And as Mr. Keshe has pointed out in several of his teachings, that there is a midpoint somewhere where there is a commonality. So we have this house of soul and the house of physicality, and then there is a window. And since these guys have kept the windows closed, so why not open the windows or have this common point or the common location where the two worlds meet in the emotional field, create the interactions, since we now have the understanding that there is this emotional plasma where there is a commonality. And as we identify that point, we don't have to close the windows and shout on either side. We can always have that window open and talk to our neighbors, the soul and the physical. So in that sense, the fields creates the bridge that we can always use. It's available. Yes, we have put a lot of effort in doing hours of meditation and prayers and whatever. But we may also want to take it in a much more, look at it in a much more relaxed way and see, okay, there is this window over there. We know now where it is, somewhere in the middle. And let's go and open it and have a conversation. And we have been thinking about them as enemies, but wherever there is an enemy, there is an opportunity to have a new friendship. So this, and we know how to do it, which is this transition field of emotion and the windows there. So this is another way of looking at it as a plasma field and create friends instead of enemies within ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mashfaq. Any other perspectives at this point? looking at the chat here, and Waldemir suggests that man is fire, woman is water. No water means only fire, which equals war with no breaks. Water equals war, or not water. The T in the middle is missing. Okay. Any other comments about our 13th commandment? The man feeds his loved ones as well as his enemies. Well, Caroline, people got quite a bit quieter after Mr. Keshe came in here. So
yeah, it's a lot of things to contemplate. That it is
he
you.
came in. He came in.
you missed it, Bilal. You must have blinked your eyes and missed it there.
It's good to go back and listen to it.
Okay.
Shall we go to the next one, maybe, if it goes so quiet? Shh. It's okay, Baba. It's okay. Are you ready to go to the next one?
Well, it seems like we've penetrated the 13th one pretty well in terms of finding out more about it, and perhaps we need a contemplation time for that. And maybe we could finish it up in the next 1N, 1P, 1R.
Yep.
As we do. So you want to start to open up the 14th one?
If people are ready for it, yeah, why not?
I don't know.
Or at least we can start.
Don't know if we're going to be ready for this one.
Or we can skip that one till Mr. Keshe is present again, and because I think that would be a very hard one to tackle.
Well, it would be good to have some guidance. That's true. Is Mr. Keshe going to be present in this workshop again, or is he gone for now?
I don't know exactly, but maybe we can go to the next one.
Okay.
And wait till the presence of Mr. Keshe, because I think that one is a very tricky one.
Well, when we start to open it up and make our errors, then I'm sure he'll want to correct us with our perception on it. So
well, he's not following. That's why I don't want to take the risk.
He's always following. Okay, well, so do you want to begin it then, or not? You're saying?
No, to go to the skip that one.
Oh.
We don't need to stick to the rules and then wait for the opportunity to get more guidance on that one.
All right, sounds good. So would you like to go to the next one, or should we wrap things up for today? How are you feeling about that?
What do you want? For me, it's all okay.
Well, Flint reminds me we are at about 2.5 hours, so that's the general time for these workshops. It all depends on whether we've completed what we need to for this portion and people have received enough to
contemplate
us going until the next workshop.
Okay. I think that will be a nice closure.
Okay, and well, we can mention maybe the 14th commandment, which we will bring up in the next workshop, which is Thou Shalt Not Rape.
I would love to propose that that one gets tackled when Mr. Keshe is present.
Yes, absolutely. I just wanted to mention it, and we could mention that it's got many meanings besides the obvious one of what we usually consider with rape. So let's let people ponder that, I think, over the next week or so. Or it might come up in the even in the Thursday workshop or something. We never know, really. But we'll definitely tackle that next time around.
Okay. We'll see if we can have Mr. Keshe on the table. I prefer to go with this one when Mr. Keshe is around. The other one is number 15. Thou shalt not judge no one except himself, and not to be judged by no one. That will be a very nice one. And we can open that one next time. If people want to take an early break, no problem.
Okay, well, that sounds good then. If there's no further discussion, we can close this workshop for today. Dimitri says, I love you. So I'm sure we can all say that back to Dimitri. Hello, you're breaking up, Dimitri. We can't hear you.
Jump in here, Rick, please. Commandment. Thou shalt not judge no one except himself, and not be judged by no one. You know, thou shalt not judge. That in itself means no enemies. You know, does it not? You know, do they not contradict? Is there some sort of contradiction there? You know, if you are thou shalt not judge, then surely the word enemy cannot be put in there because that is judgment. No?
Yes, sure. Yeah, we'll bring that up next week after we deal with the 14th, and then that'll be the 15th commandment. But yes, good point, which is also similar to the 12th commandment, thou shalt be equal to others, and so on. Not consider thyself higher or lower. But every commandment has its own distinctions, as we find out when we dive into them. So I'm sure we'll find out some interesting aspects of that one that's different than the other ones. Okay, let's wrap it up for today then. I think we've probably had enough for digestion for the next while.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, team. See you in the next meetings or private teachings. Thank you, team, for being there. And thank you, knowledge seekers, for your presence and your input. Thank you very much.
All right, very good, everyone. And thank you, Flint, for ending our workshop today.
Yes, I deserve.
Oh, sorry, I was hearing my background live stream playing the, I thought it was the ending video. I heard the sound for it. Let me make the announcement for the ending here to properly end. Thank you, everyone, for attending the 52nd One Nation, One Planet, One Race for World Peace today, which has been Tuesday, October 9th, 2018. As always, thanks to everyone for attending, and for especially for those who participated today and engaged in our discussion. Okay, Flint, go ahead and you can play the ending videos, and we'll see everybody next time around. We're not hearing the audio for that, Flint.
Sorry about that.
Hello. We are the Keshe Foundation. Our mission is to bring peace on Earth and join humanity with the universal community. We wish and work to bring man as equal to all beings in the universe. By teaching plasma science and technology equally to everyone, no one is left out and no one is abused due to lack of knowledge. By donating to us, you can help achieve this goal. keshefoundation.org/donate.
Plasma products found at keshefoundation.org/store. Soothing, reusable plasma eye and migraine mask. Eliminate eye fatigue and relieve stress in eye area. European certified medical device. Massaging plasma insoles. Bring comfort back to your feet and energize your legs. European CE certified medical device. Antiseptic plasma liquid hand soap. Promotes well-being and relaxation with protective plasma formula. CE certified. One Soul Plasma T-shirt. GAN's formula within the symbols and stripes brings mind, soul, and body into balance. European certified. Pain Relief Pen. Emits a concentrated plasma field at point of pain, efficient up to 3 centimeters below the skin. CE certified. The Magrav's Energizer and Alkalizer raises pH and energizes water through magnetic and gravitational fields. CE certified medical device. Pain Relief Pad, a result of years of research in nanoplasma technology with magnetic and gravitational fields. CE certified medical device. Visit the online store at keshefoundation.org/store or find a distributor near you. Tax and shipping not included.
The process of understanding is very simple. The process is, as I explained last time, I explained more in detail. We are created out of the rays within the center of the universe. In interaction and reduction in strength and division by the strength in certain strength fields, in collection of the totality of the expansion of the universe, some energies, some dynamic fields have come together. Over billions of years, these fields lead to the creation of what we call the sun. Where the plasma gathers together. The same process repeats again because the sun is the same as the energy center of the universe. Now, the heavier, the larger amount of the energy which is collected in this span of the universe, called the sun, that irradiates out, does the same thing again. radiates fields out, and in interaction with the itself, with the fields of itself, leads to creation of planet. In that process of the creation of planet, the same process happens again. In the interaction of the fields of the earth with its environment and cooling and exchange with the strength of the other things in the environment of the space of the solar system, leads to creation of man, cell, matter state. And that itself, in coming together and slowing down in certain ways, as we call, leads to another sun. We call the soul of the man. This is the truth about the life and creation of the man. But if the soul of the man can understand and absorb and be correct with his conduct, he can become the strength of the fields and carry the strength of the field of the planet which came to this creation. And if the soul can understand with the same process, can interact, can be correct, can absorb with itself the totality of the strength of what it needs, he shall become the sun. And then the same soul has the energy that it can absorb within the solar system, within the galaxy, shall become the center of the universe. Earth, we call it the rain, come from and goes back to. Solar system, we call it planetary system. We come from the rays, we become the planet, and we go back to the mother. The same thing happens with the galaxies, with the solar systems, which they get absorbed back in and they chewed up back in the universe. The life, the process of existence in the universe is the same. It doesn't matter on what exchange and what extent. So, what is the man fighting for? Why do we fight for something which has come from the point of the creation, and in the process it goes back to the creation? The soul of the man, as the energy of the earth, gives the face of the man, the face of the earth, and that process is the same for the soul of the man. Our soul, in reduction in strength, in interaction with the emotion of the field of the environment, leads to manifestation of the existence of the man. But once it's completed, does it need the face? Or can it be and becomes free from it, what we call the soul of the man, to be free and detached from its existence? Our soul is part of the process of the creation. The key to one question, who man shall be in the future, to be answered. As we saw, the sun became the earth, and as we saw, the earth became the man's soul. What would be the destiny of the soul of the man now becomes free at the point of departure from physicality. would it become the sun for creation of another life, or many lives, or correction of lives? This shall be, and this is how it happens. When you create a soul which is not correct, which is misconduct by itself, cannot give, you lead to the creation of this next cycle of creation, which has started the wrong way, the wrong strength. This is one thing the man has never understood. You become the creator of another universe, another cycle. And this is what you have to judge within the structure of the soul of the man. What would I like that cycle to be? In the physical life, we create children. In the dimension of the life of the soul of the man, what that soul will create. If man has thought up to now, that's it, my end, my point, when I die is finished, there's as much fallacy that when the sun is destroyed in any shape or form, there shall be nothing left. But we know the part of the sun becomes part of the galaxy and becomes part of new life. So shall be the soul of the man. The judgment of the man has to be according to what he sees the future his soul can conduct to be. The day of judgment is for the man, not in front of the Creator. That what my soul judges to be and what shall create. Man never understood and shall never understand till can solve this dilemma within itself. The reality is very, very, very real. And that is, as we've seen, the energy of the galaxy become the sun, the energy of the sun has become the earth, and the energy of the earth has become the soul of the man. So shall be the soul of the man, which is the energy itself, another cycle of life. How can you change when you don't understand? How can you change the process of understanding if you do not understand the process of the creation? Do we need to extend the understanding of the man that what is the future he brings? We care about our children, what education they get, what they wear, how happy they'll be, where they sleep. Now the man has to be careful and consider what life shall my soul create, because those are the children of your soul. As we see, the rays of the sun has become a planet and 7 million children of it. 7 billion unlimited, which is growing. So the soul of the man will go through the same process. How many billions and subdivisions and sub-matter state of the physicality of the man your soul shall create? Would it be the soul of wars and conflict and forever killing? Or would it be the soul of this, let's say, solar system, which is peaceful? This is the truth and the reality about the soul of the man. First of all, as I said many times recently, we never understood that the soul of the man is within the structure of the man. And now that we understood, we understand on departure from the physicality of the man, the same process will carry on as it did for a star, a planet. And the soul of the man becomes another energy source, a higher order, which itself leads to the creation. It becomes the star, it becomes the center of the new cycle of creation. This is what the human race has to understand. The cycle actually starts from the point of death and not finishes at the point of death. In so many ways, if one understands, is as the dusts, specks of dust came together to make the earth in the solar system, so has the specks of the atoms has come to be the creator of man. And the essence of the creation of the specks of dust on the solar system has led to the creation of man. So shall be the fields from the soul of the man which lead to creation of another cycle of life. What kind of life man would like to have to be created by his soul? This is the day of judgment. This is what man never understood. Now you have to understand. You have no choice. Up to today you were not aware of it. From today you are aware of it. You are responsible for it. Your conduct has to be to elevate your soul. That in elevating the soul, what you become the creator of stands correct in the conduct of the citizens. We don't give fairy tale. This is the truth. But as you've seen, the process does not stop with one sun. The cycle carries on. It's very interesting in how humanity now knows in fact to handle the fact. It'll take decades for man to understand, and then you understand those who become the tools of war, the tools of conflict. They have nothing to start with. They have to become the dust in the solar system of the others till the day they learn more, as they cannot create a new cycle through their own soul. This is the elevation of the soul of the man. To be part of the creation of a beautiful life for the next cycle. When you don't have it, you have to become another cell in the body of the structure of the bigger, for you to be just there that you can done when you could have been the soul of the man. They say, do not create fear. I give you the point of love for creation. If you cared about your children on this planet to have the best, your true children come out of your own soul in the coming time. How would you like to educate them? How would you like to be when you are in conflict with yourself and the cause of so much mayhem? This is the truth. And the man will take a long time to understand, as now that we understand the soul of the man is an operator for the creation of the future extent of the life of the man. Whatever is gathered by the soul at the end becomes his point of reference of his own creation of his own dimension. But the strangest thing is, what he creates from his soul shall become the creator of the other souls. This is the beauty about the creation, and one understands it, understands no limitation.